Mayor for today, so I don't know the mayor, but hold up. So I'm working on like a variation of that walk right now, but it don't hold so. Welcome PPC Podcast fam. It's week 9, FC49D, you know what I'm saying? So today this week we have a lot of self-reflection that we can take from what we are viewing this week. Because today's Exodus is about balance and loyalty. It's kind of similar to a section of the Power Box, but it is more so in tune to you asking yourself, am I being selfish? Or am I looking out for everyone who is still in my immediate influence? We're going to look to the judiciary branch for some guidance. This week, my group was presenting about the Supreme Court, and we talked very deeply about like the idea of it having a code of ethics. Now, you might take the Bill of Rights as a code of ethics sometimes, but at the same time, we feel like it must be further defined. Because at times the Constitution uses very long language that provides great space for deviation and adaptability because it's a growing document. And the concept of a growing document is quite beautiful, but it does have some challenges. It was formed allowing the Supreme Court to walk with much autonomy. Now, here's the only issue about this. And we gotta take it down to democracy versus autocracy. We tried to go away from Great Britain to avoid autocracy. Democracy, definition number 1. For the people, by the people. That's your mantra. You are taking a utilitarianism type defense. What supports the majority is what should be done. Now, I want you to think about how can you actually ascertain what the majority wants in an efficient and reproducible way. Just like in Blue Lock, you have to have the formula to make it work every single time in every single situation. Autocracy is all me. I'm a single entity who is going to make decisions for all beneath ye. Side number 2, definition number 2, autocracy is about one paramount force that makes all the decisions. Now you can see autocracy within republics. And that's where we have a little bit of a confliction in Kidder. It talks about, well, in Christians as well, actually mainly in Christians, it talks about a conflict of interest. I'm presenting within the judiciary system of the U.S. government, there was a conflict of intent. So what can the executive branch do about it? The executive branch is actually the one who picks the justices who go to that level. So it's like, and they can pick anyone. It's solely up to their discernment. And that person will live on the Supreme Court if they accept the position until they die or they retire. So it's either God takes them out or they take themselves out. Or, here's where legislative gets to come in, impeachment. But you also have to have grounds for impeachment. If there is such a vague code of ethics, and the only real pitfall is that it says don't be involved in political activity, what can we even define political activity? Because with just being a friend of someone, the person who put you in, just look at me, please. Just look at me, cuz. So why do I use the Supreme Court as this example? The entire U.S. government is built off of checks and balances. That is how our democracy is also a republic, because we tend to use representatives for different sections of the people, because there was at the time no official way to completely get the entire public's opinion for every decision. So it was like, I entrust my opinion to this representative. Republic starts to add the idea of autocracy just on much more of a cubic level than like an overall grand scale level. Now that is also still derived from what we were trying to get away from, but just by breaking it down. All right, so Supreme Court, they have very strong checks against the executive and legislative branch. The executive branch, because they define what the Constitution actually is intended. If something is not constitutional, it will not pass. And there's no real higher authority above them unless you would consider the Code of Ethics itself as an entity. That would be the only thing that would actually be above the Supreme Court. But once you take an inch, people can take a mile. So if you show that the Supreme Court can be controlled, people are going to try and control it. As they've already found ways to do through incentives, which would be one of the greatest steps towards ending the problem with the Supreme Court. If we cannot recreate the system, we must reform the system. So, as it is following an adaptive and growing document, maybe the Supreme Court should grow and adapt. Because they already have a law in place that once put into office, their salary can never be declined. So they can't do like what they do with NFL players and actually fine them when they step out of line, and they know they stepped out of line. And the current code of ethics is very vague, very broad, which gives them a lot of freedom and kind of just reasserts things about the court that the court already was born to have autonomy over. So it basically just reinforces its own power without truly placing the barrier for where it needs to stop.